preparing for a big game in San Francisco when his biggest fan throws her lip gloss at the ground at his feet when magically a genie appears and grants him 3 wishes.
Ooh. Lip gloss genie.
Alright. As the doorbell flashes, a normally calm Orlando firehouse erupts into chaos as the firefighters prepare for Mickey Mouse's current predicament.
Always wondering what happens in Mickey Mouse.
I was really hoping you weren't going to pick the book. It is funny. I just envision like a Roger Rabbit, like cartoons in the real world.
The president of the Stamp Collectors Club is sent through a wormhole to a zoo where people are in the cages and animals run the show.
Right. The superhero whose alter ego as a teacher at West Catholic High School needs his friend, the chef, to genetically engineer carrots and other food so he can fight crime at the Sears Tower and surrounding area. But one day, the chef feels neglected and feeds him a carrot dipped in peanut oil, which he is allergic to, taking away his powers.
I think you should change that to campus minister, it's true.
Okay. So, we all have varying degrees of crazy ideas. So now, what we want to do is start thinking about the whys and, like, those are the big questions. The why are things happening. I think I said to a couple of the groups, like, why is it, you guys had one where, I think it was, what was it, the chef, you had one that had like the Pied Piper in it.
Oh, yeah.
And like he tried to lure the chef onto a space station. And the question is why? Why are those things happening? Because you want to start thinking about these characters as real people now. Like not as these fake things. They're real people that have real motivations, real goals. So like your firefighter story, start asking questions like, why is it that the firefighters have a hotline to Mickey Mouse? Like, why is that? Is it something special about the firefighters? Is it something special about Mickey Mouse? Like, those are questions you have to start asking and answering for an audience because those are the questions we're going to have when we sit down and we see the firefighters all run over to Mickey Mouse's house. Or castle, or whatever it is he lives inside. So, you got to start asking those questions of why things are happening, and start asking questions that revolve around conflict. Who was it that said conflict is what was missing from that story earlier? Cole, I think. Yeah, and the story that I told you guys earlier, conflict is the big thing that's missing from that story. Okay, conflict is what drives it. It drives any good story. So now we're going to start injecting conflict into these stories, okay? And we need to do it in kind of a specific way, because the way most stories run, and this is kind of the way that we're geared to kind of accept a story, is you usually come across one of your characters, and that character is in what we call the ordinary world, okay? Ordinary world is ordinary for that character, okay? Maybe not ordinary for us, but The Hobbit. Everybody seen The Hobbit? Or Lord of the Rings, it's the same thing, whether you're talking about Frodo or Bilbo. The Shire is their ordinary world. It's an exotic world to us, but to Bilbo and Frodo, the Shire is an extraordinarily unexciting place. It is where their normal life happens. And your story usually starts out, your story will start off in an ordinary world for your character. And then the character will have something called an inciting incident. These are like huge industry terms. Like, if you were to ever become like a real screenwriter and like go to Hollywood and pitch movie ideas, and you were to say like, okay, this is my story idea, and you give them a log line, they might ask you, what's your inciting incident, and expect you to know what that means. The inciting incident is the thing that happens that forces this person out of their ordinary world, okay? So in The Lord of the Rings, the inciting incident for for Frodo is Bilbo leaving and giving him the ring, and Gandalf saying you need to leave. Okay, the inciting incident for Bilbo in The Hobbit is Gandalf showing up and a bunch of dwarves tumbling in his door. Okay, the inciting incident in The Matrix is Neo getting a phone call from Morpheus saying there are agents who are after you, and he doesn't know what they're talking about. But from that moment on, Neo is in a weird world that he does not understand. Okay? And this is like the essence of the adventure that this person is going to go on. And we as an audience are going to go on that adventure with them. So can you guys think of any other like movies that you can, like some of your favorite movies that you can say pretty easily what you think the inciting incident and like what the ordinary world is for the main character?
In the movie Stardust, the character, he is in an ordinary world, but then he has to go over the wall to find Colin Star.
Right, when he goes over the wall.
Yeah, over the wall.
Like, and that's a really like powerful like ordinary world, extraordinary world, because there's an actual wall in between the ordinary world and the extraordinary world. Kind of like Narnia, where it's like you have the ordinary world and then there's Narnia. And like very clearly, the crossing into the extraordinary world is when they go through the world. Yeah. So like, how about, just because.
The tornado in the Wizard of Oz, right?
What's that?
The tornado in the Wizard of Oz?
Right.
She's in, liberal Kansas, and then boom, she's in Oz.
Yeah, exactly. Like something happens that forces her out of her ordinary world. Because everybody knows it's Star Wars. What's the inciting incident in Star Wars?
The death of Luke's,
Yeah.
yeah,
The death of
Vernon,
Luke's aunt and
whatever.
uncle.
Peru.
Because up until that point, he's telling Obi-Wan, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Right? Like Obi-Wan says to him, come on, you should come with me and learn the ways of the Force and all that stuff. And he's like, I can't do that. I've got the harvest.
That's your uncle talking.
And it's like, yeah, that's your uncle talking. And that's actually a really like commonly used device, is that a lot of times in between these two things is something that's called the refusal of the call. And a lot of times in movies, your hero is a reluctant hero. Like he doesn't want to go on the adventure and he'll refuse it at first. So like Luke does that.
Spider-Man, when his uncle, first he doesn't even intervene to stop the guy.
Exactly.
And then his uncle gets killed by the guy.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing, because like in Spider-Man, you think like the extraordinary world is when that he moves out of, that the inciting incident is him getting bit by the spider, but it's not. The inciting incident is his uncle being killed. Because up until that point, he's content to just lie low and like, even though he's been bit by the spider, he's not gonna live an exciting life. He's just gonna kind of do this wrestling thing and make a little bit of money and still try and date Mary Jane, and like he has very low ideas about what he's gonna use his powers for. It's once his Uncle Ben dies that he decides I'm gonna be a superhero. I'm gonna put on this costume and I'm gonna web sling all over the city and try and stop villains. So, are there any other ideas about that? Like what movies that it stands out to you in?
In Hello Dolly, Cornelius and Barnaby, they decide that they're going to leave their general store, Yonkers, and go into town and not come back until they kiss the girl. No.
Yeah. So yeah, like this is in like so many movies. It's just you don't even notice it. Like a lot of what we're talking about today is just putting names to things that you guys already know instinctually. Like if you were to watch a movie and this didn't happen, it would seem weird to you because you've seen it so many times. So we're gonna start putting that into our film. So then you have the inciting incident, and he has to go to the extraordinary world, he or she, like the protagonist. And they will have a task of some sort or a villain that they have to conquer. You know, they have the ring they have to destroy. They have whatever problem, the Green Goblin that they have to stop. You know, the Death Star plans that they have to get to the princess, like whatever it is, they have a task that they're going to have to complete. And this right here is the majority of your movie. This is where most of the movie happens. And in this part, they're going to meet friends, they're going to run into enemies, they're going to grow, they're going to run into obstacles. Like this part, the ordinary world, this is what we and to the Inciting Incident is, have you guys ever heard of like the 3-act structure? I don't know if you guys ever have, but most movies, that's how they're referred to, is they're 3-act plays, basically. The first act is everything that happens in the ordinary world. The second act is the task. And the third act is the climax and consequences. That's not even close to spelling. But you can't read it anyway, because you're way over there. So, this task is the majority of the movie. Like, if you think of most movies, like if you are like 120 minutes, a half hour of it will be spent in the ordinary world, and a half hour of it will be spent on the climax and the consequences. An hour of it will be here. And this is the hardest part of the story to write. Because it's the part that if it's not working, if it's not making sense, if it's not clicking, drags. You know, like, and you
Is
can
the ordinary world where you identify characters, kind of? Is that just kind of like superficially?
Yeah, you start developing, especially your main character. Like, really, what you're going to see in the ordinary world with this main character is you're going to find out what drives that character. Like, the way that we refer to it is that they kind of have a mask character, and then they have their deeper real character. So there's like Luke, for example, in Star Wars. Luke is wearing a mask. His mask is farm boy. You know, that's not who Luke really is. Okay? And in the first act, we're going to see him as farm boy, and we're going to see him try and stay farm boy. Okay? The task, getting the Death Star plans to the princess, is where Luke is going to realize, I'm not a farm boy. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me. You know, that's when he starts realizing who he really is. And really, here, at the end of the task, because this is kind of a weird thing, the task actually gets completed before the end of the movie. Like in Star Wars, the task, why does Luke set out from Tatooine? Why does he leave? What is the task he's trying to complete when he leaves?
Rescue Princess Leia.
Right, actually not even to rescue the princess. Think about what's the message say.
Alderaan.
Deliver these plans to my father at Alderaan.
Yeah.
That's Luke's task. Now, does it seem like Star Wars is about that? Not really. A lot of times, because Star Wars is not really about that. What Star Wars is really about, and this is what you're going to kind of develop through your stories here, is that it's not about the surface thing. Your story is not going to be about a guy who gets superpowers from the food movies. You know, that's what it's going to be about on the surface. That's the Death Star plans. What this is really about, this is about Luke becoming a man. That's what Star Wars is about. Okay? And your movie is going to be about something, it's going to be about that guy, but it's going to be about what happens inside of him. Because those deep changes that happen to us are what we identify with. You know? Like, and the degree to which you can help your audience identify with that character and understand that struggle that character is going through, that's what drives the movie, that's what you connect with, and it's why you're going to care when Luke switches off the targeting computer. Because he's realizing, I'm a Jedi. I'm a Jedi, I can do this. You know? And that's why you're like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? That's why in Return of the Jedi, the fight between Darth Vader and Luke is so powerful, is because you see Luke being tempted to do something, to kill, to fight back in anger, which we all understand. We all understand that temptation, like whether it's our parents or our boyfriends or our girlfriends or just our friends or whoever it is, like we all understand what it's like to get angry and to be like, you know what, I would do anything to stop this from happening anymore. And so when Luke starts feeling that way and he comes out of the hallway and he starts swinging with that thing and he just starts wailing on Darth Vader until his hand is chopped off, like we feel it. Because we understand how that feels. And that's why we're invested. And movies that don't do that are boring. Because you don't care. Like, you're watching it and you're going, is Luke gonna kill him? Is Luke gonna do it? Because I might do it. You know, and you're invested. But I would argue this is why movies like Transformers aren't as good. Because at the end of Transformers, like whatever, I mean, I hardly even remember what the conflict at the end of the third one is about. Like, because I so don't care about the characters. I so don't care about the conflict they're having. It hasn't grabbed me all the way through. All it is like a bunch of noise happening on the screen. You know, so like this is all about trying to bring people into relating to your characters. You know, so like when we start going through to this ordinary world and the task and into this climax and consequences, which like here, going back to Star Wars, because I know I ran off on a tangent there. Sorry. But Luke completes his task when he rescues the princess, right? He's got the Death Star plans. They get to the resistance, to the rebellion. And you even see Han Solo's character, like, he kind of stands in for Luke and says, well, we've done what we came here to do, I'm out of here, right? And this is where we see that Luke has really become a man. Because Luke says, no. Like, even though this isn't what I set out here to do, this is my fight now. So even though the task is over, now we move into the climax. The climax is, I'm going to fly this ship to the Death Star, and I may die. But that's okay, because I know who I am, and I'm going to be the person that I am, and not pretend to be the farmer anymore, and not pretend to be a person who isn't a hero, and who isn't going to sacrifice for his friends. Like, he's grown up, and he's already and there's a half hour left in the movie. So so then you have the climax, which is him flying down the Death Star trench and all that, and the consequences, which are the galaxy is now, or at the end of the first one, you think the galaxy is going to be free, but of course it's not. So what I'd like you guys to do now is we're going to take your idea, and on the piece of paper, I want you to write a 1, 2, and a 3, okay? And the 1 is for the first act, 2 is for second, 3 is for third. And the next thing that you really need to do is say, who's the main character? What is their ordinary world? What is the task that they have to complete? Okay? And especially ask, what is the inciting incident? What is it that drives them into completing that task? Okay? And it can be something like really like Luke Skywalker-y, where like, my parents are dead, I've got nowhere else to go, so I might as well go. It can be a really subtle thing like, you know, I've just had this longing for a long time that I've been suppressing, and I'm not going to suppress it anymore. You know? So, we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Ordinary world, inciting incident, and what their task is. And really, the rest of this is going to kind of start to grow out of this naturally. Okay? Because once you start saying what the ordinary world is, just like with Luke, it's like, we know what his ordinary world is, we know what the inciting incident is, We know what his task is. Like, the rest of it is kind of natural. Like, okay, well, if Luke has grown up and he's no longer wearing the mask of the farmer, and he's now living out the reality of being the Jedi, what would the Jedi do if the Death Star were bearing down on the Rebel fortress? You would stand and fight. So like, it's pretty logical what happens at this point. So I actually want us to focus on this area first. And we'll spend like, I think probably 15, 20 minutes working on that, okay? So let's get back into our groups and start asking ourselves those why questions